So what I want to talk about in this video are a few strategies that I use to overcome fear, self-doubt, and limiting beliefs that actually stop me from achieving any form of success. Because the steps and the tactics that you need to take are relatively straightforward. But the thing that stops most people is what's happening up here. It's the fear, it's the limiting beliefs, it's the self-doubt. It's all of those things that are actually stopping you from actually stepping into the person that you can be. All right, the reality of running your own business is that you have to think about so many different things. You have to think about what tasks to focus on, what things are going to bring in the money. You know, are you going to be able to pay your bills for the month? Who do you need to hire? How do you deal with people that you're managing? How do you focus on executing on a strategy? How do you get all of these things out? It's challenging. It's one of the hardest things that you can possibly do. And the thing is, if it was easy, more people would be millionaires. More people would have businesses, but they don't. And so what I want to talk about in this video is how to actually develop unwavering sense of belief that will actually help carry you through moments of challenge, because the challenges come often, whether it's, you know, having sleepless nights thinking about bills, whether it's losing out on big contracts, whether it is launching a product and completely failing. You know, those are really challenging times to deal with. And if you don't have a few mental models or a few tools to basically rely on, man, honestly, and I've seen it happen many times, people will just back out, they'll quit, they'll throw the towel in. Because one thing that is for certain is that obstacles are inevitable, all right? And Tony Robbins said this in the past. He said, people's biggest problem is that they think they shouldn't have any problems. And this is so true when it comes to running your own business and doing things that require you to step into the unknown. There are always going to be a new set of problems. You're going to overcome that set of problems. Once you get the right tools and skills, you move up to the next level, and then another set of problems show up. You got to develop some new skills, and then you got to move to the next level, and you got to develop some new skills to overcome the next problem. And so that's actually a way that you can start to see life and see this game of progression where you are constantly going from level to level to level, trying to solve and overcome specific problems at each different stage. That's why it's so important to have different tools to basically help solve the different problems that you're facing at each step of the way. Now, you can have the best tools in the world, but if you don't have the know-how on how to use those tools effectively, you're going to be stuck in what I call the desert of despair. And in the desert of despair, that is where you are overcome by agony, pain. You're overcome by fear, doubt, uncertainty, all of these things that creates this incredibly overwhelming feeling of, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to do this. And unfortunately, this is the point at which where most people sort of throw in the towel and give up. Either they start a new idea, or they go back to their old employment, or they just go back and find a job and sort of throw the towel in. But what is waiting for you on the other side of the desert of despair is a huge amount of achievement. It's a huge amount of success. But it requires you to sit, stay, and learn in the desert of despair until you are ready to pass through into the next level. Now, if you like to play video games, which I did back in the day, and whenever I get a chance to, I love it. You got to think of the game of business kind of like you're playing a PlayStation game, where every single level, you get to the end of the level, you go through some challenges, you go through some things, you pick up some cool weapons and spells and potions, and then finally you get to the end of the level where you actually fight a boss battle. And in that boss battle, you got to beat that boss in order to progress to the next level. And so you will just have to fight and fight and fight and fight and keep fighting that boss until you basically progress. Now, that's a very, very cool analogy on how business works, because the challenge and the boss battle that you're going to be facing when you start a business is different from when you're trying to scale a business, for example. And so it requires a new set of skills and a new set of things to basically navigate those challenges. And the purpose of this video is that I want to just talk about the real key ingredient that will allow you to navigate these challenges successfully without basically getting to your wit's end and basically throwing in the towel. And essentially what it is unwavering self-belief. Now, this is coming from someone who notoriously or traditionally has had relatively low self-esteem. I have a tendency to doubt myself. I have a tendency to think, oh my goodness, this ain't gonna work out. But it wasn't until I started to really develop a sense of self-belief and confidence in my ability, not necessarily to solve the specific problem, but rather to be resilient and consistent regardless of how tough things would get. And so I knew that regardless of how big the problem was that I was facing or how challenging things would get, I had confidence in my ability to stay and learn in the discomfort. This is a topic for another video, but if you check out this video, video, I talk about what's actually happening in your brain whenever you're trying to learn a new set of skills or whenever you're in the complete unknown. Because anytime someone says to me, Luke, I'm really thinking about starting a business, I'll probably do it in a few years' time. I'm like, dang, that's not the right attitude to have, because you want to be in the game as soon as possible so you can start developing skills immediately. All right, because the only way you're going to develop skills is through action and then repetition. And you're not going to develop skills, you're not going to get the tools needed to do what you want to do without being in the game and wrestling with some of these ideas and concepts. But the underlying key of it all is an unwavering sense of self-belief and confidence that you are in it for the long game, that you are in it until it works out. And then your success only becomes a matter of time. It's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when. And so when you get to that stage, you're like, okay, cool, I'm in this game until the physical world catches up, because in my head, I've already become the person I'm trying to become. I've already made however much money I want to make. I've already built my facility in South Africa where I can invite my clients to and have awesome peak experiences with. And now I just have to do the actions on a daily basis until my physical reality catches up to me. You might be thinking, Luke, well, how the hell do I create an unwavering sense of self-belief? Well, it starts with basically building a foundation of belief. Bob Proctor said this awesome quote, which I absolutely love, which is, both fear and faith require that you believe in something that is not there. It is your choice to decide. And so every single time you believe in the fear that you have and those uncomfortable feelings, as opposed to choosing to have faith that things are going to work out, then you are choosing the outcome and the experience that you're going to be having. And so you can right now choose to have faith that shit is gonna work out regardless. And the moment you actually do that, you shift your brain into a state of thinking on the positive side of what if, as opposed to always thinking, what if things don't work out? What if this fails? What if this launch doesn't work? What if no one replies to my comments? What if no one replies to my offer? What if no one follows me? Blah, 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 blah. But what if it actually does all work out? What if things work out better than you can possibly ever have imagined? Having that philosophy in your mind where anytime anything happens to you, regardless of whether it is perceived as good or bad, if you are able to see the advantage in that situation, you, my friend, are going to be in such a better position than the majority of people on earth, because you are choosing to see the positive. You are choosing to get out of a stressed state where the stressed hormones are taking over your body into an excitatory state where positive hormones are flowing through you, and you can actually see and visualize the future that you're trying to go after. So always ask yourself, anytime anything happens to you, where is the advantage in this? How can I find the advantage? How can I take advantage of this? And you will always start to position the things that happen in your life, whether they're obstacles or problems or struggles, in a way more positive light. What you also want to do to build a foundation of unwavering self-belief is basically understand and identify what your core values are as a human being. Now, I remember when I was maybe early 20s, when I first discovered what my first true value was. And I always knew that having personal sovereignty and having freedom was a huge, huge value of mine. And at the time, I was working a job as a sales rep in a gym. And I knew that going to work every day and working for a big corporation was literally so opposed to what I actually wanted to do. And I knew that freedom and my own personal sovereignty was one of my core values. And so what I did was I allowed that, and I knew that, okay, that's one of my core values. Let me embody that in every decision and every path that I try to take. And so the way that I've set my life up now has that core value built into it from the ground up. It's basically at the center of any decisions I make. So for example, the place I choose to live here in Bali. I choose to have my own business. I've chosen to go down a path where I take complete responsibility for the results that I have. And so your core values become basically like guiding stars for you, which will help you create and choose different directions to move in throughout life. Once you start choosing and creating opportunities for yourself based on your core values, you are confident that you're not selling yourself out. So for example, if I was to go and basically commit myself to a company for 3 months, for example, working at their facility, I would know that that would be going against my core values of having personal autonomy and sovereignty in what I'm doing. All right, so understand what your core values are, and a really good test on this is the Dr. Demartini's values test, which I recommend you go check out and do that. That'll give you a very good idea of what your core values are. And then once you understand your core values, you can start to build your life around that, ensuring you are always aligned to what your values are. That's going to give you more confidence knowing that your life is set up the way that you want it to be set up. Because, for example, health and fitness is one of my highest values. If I go out on a 3-day bender drinking alcohol and doing drugs, I'm going to feel like a piece of shit because that is against my values. And I will know that that is going to make me feel insecure. It's not going to make me feel confident. When I stack on days on top of each other, when I'm training, I'm going to the gym, I'm eating well, I'm doing all of those things, I'm living in accordance to my values, I feel very, very confident. Okay, it's quite simple. So know what your values are and live life according to them. The next element to developing unwavering self-belief and confidence is basically surrounding yourself with people who exude the values and are prime examples of the person that you want to become. A year or two ago now, I spent a month in the Bali time chamber. I was filming the documentary for them and creating the content. Now, I spent a month in that environment, which basically had a bunch of guys, entrepreneurs from all around the world who were in fantastic shape. They had great businesses. They were doing fantastic things in their life. And I remember the feeling I had before going into that and then during the event, and it was like night or day. All right, before the event, I was kind of coasting around, feeling a little bit insecure about my direction in life, what I wanted to be doing. As soon as I got there, I was like, flip, anything is possible. I can literally do anything. There's nothing I'm afraid of, because I was surrounded by men who literally were a prime example to me. No one was preaching to me on what to do or how I should live my life, but they were just being examples, and that rubbed off on me. So for example, if you are surrounded by people who complain all the time about the rat race, they complain about their jobs, they complain about their girlfriends, their wives, I'm telling you, that is not a fertile environment. And so if you want to develop unwavering self-belief, you have to get into an environment which encourages that and is a prime example of people who see the world in a way that you want to see the world. Now, if you don't have those people around you, you can start to curate those people through the podcasts you listen to, through the books you listen to. And so those are going to be great examples on how you can start to curate the environment around you. So every time you do have an idea, it's in a fertile environment and it can grow, as opposed to putting it into some dry stones and soil. The plant's not going to grow in that environment. And it's the same with your ideas, and it's the same with the things you think about. So get yourself into an environment that supports the person that you want to become. Now, the third element to developing unwavering self-belief and confidence is basically developing the skill and the muscle to actually take action on what you're doing. For the first start of my career, for example, I would show you like literally notepads full of ideas. And if I basically told you how many of those ideas I took action on, you would be like, flipping hell, Luke, what have you been doing? So it's very easy to think about big ideas. It's very easy to have ideas in your mind, but execution of those ideas is just another matter entirely. And so the way that you can start to get better at taking action on things is the same way you grow a muscle in a gym. You have to get repetitions in. And so it doesn't have to be starting a big grand app right off the bat, but it could literally just be as simple as thinking about a drawing it down and writing it out. Or it could be as simple as shooting a video and posting it onto social media. The more you do that and get into the habit of thinking of an idea and creating it and thinking it and creating it and thinking it and creating it, the more you're going to be skilled at the process of creation. Because the process of creation is the ability to think, conceptualize, and bring into the material world. And the only way you can get better at that is by doing it. And so you don't have to start super big, but just get into the habit of daily creation, because the more you create on a daily basis, the better your skill of creation is going to become, and the more you're going to be able to take action on your ideas instead of thinking of cool ideas, letting a few weeks pass and then going, shit, I wish I took action on that, or the moment's passed, the motivation's gone. And so you have to develop that discipline and that ability to take action, because then you're going to prove to yourself that you can do stuff. All right. And the more you prove to yourself that you can do stuff, the more courageous you're going to be, because you're constantly pushing yourself out of the comfort zone, and you're growing and you're growing and you're growing. And as you grow through repetition, your confidence grows as well. All right. And so what can you create today? Can it be a video? Can it be a drawing? Can you send someone a voice note? Can you go out and take some photos if photography is what you're into? Instead of procrastinating on your ideas, get into the habit of taking massive action on them. And that's going to help you develop confidence in the long run. All right. And so if you can start to tie these things together, you are basically going to start developing what I call the courageous self inside of you. And the courageous self is the ability to move forward into fear regardless of how afraid you might feel. Because the brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. If you can start to stack these on top of each other, you're going to start to develop your courageous self. And the courageous self is a requirement in order to be successful in business. Because if you are stuck in a mode of positioning for approval, if you're stuck in a mode of thinking about things and not actually taking action on them, then my friend, you're basically limited in what you can do. And you will always come up to certain ceilings and you will stop there. All right. Whether it's making your first sales online, or whether it's getting to your first 10K a month, whether it's getting to your first 50K a month, whether it's getting to your first 100K a month, it doesn't matter, because it's just different levels of human development. As you go through it, you need different tools, and you need to be able to have the courageous self developed so you can basically break through each ceiling as you go. Now, my friend, if you like this video, subscribe for more, and I'll see you on the next one.